I found out my husband forgot to pay my student loans after using my savings to buy his dream car. I'm still shaking as I write this. I don't even know where to start. My name's Emily, 32F, and I've been married to Mark, 35M, for almost 6 years, together for 9. We've always had what I thought was a solid marriage. Not perfect, but safe. We laughed a lot, fought sometimes, and talked about everything. Or at least I thought we did. When we first got married, I had around $47,000 in student loans. I was a first-generation college grad and proud of that degree, even if it came with a mountain of debt. I worked 2 jobs after graduation, mornings as a receptionist and evenings waiting tables, just to stay afloat. Mark, back then, was the financially savvy one. He worked in IT and always loved spreadsheets, budgeting, and numbers. So when he offered to handle our finances once we got married, it honestly felt like a relief. I was tired. I trusted him. He said, "You've worked hard enough, babe. Let me take care of this part." And I did. Every month, I'd transfer my part of the bills into our joint account. He said he'd take care of the payments, like mortgage, utilities, loans, all of it. We had a rhythm, and I didn't question it. Fast forward to last month. I got a call from a debt collector. At first, I thought it was a scam. They always sound so fake, right? But then the woman on the line read my full name, my loan provider, and an exact balance that made my stomach drop. $52,873.16. I froze. I told her there had to be a mistake. My husband had been making the payments for years. She said there hadn't been a single payment in 27 months. 2 years. I remember hanging up, just sitting there on the kitchen floor, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My hands were trembling. I waited until Mark got home from work, trying not to panic, trying to believe there was a reasonable explanation. When he walked in, I showed him the notice. He didn't even look shocked. He just said, "Oh, yeah, I was gonna tell you, I messed up." Messed up? I repeated. "Mark, this is my credit, my loan, my future." "What do you mean you messed up?" He rubbed his neck, wouldn't look me in the eye. "I thought I set up autopay. I just forgot. It's not a big deal. We'll fix it." Forgot. 2 years of missed payments, late fees, interest, and credit damage. And he forgot. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up my laptop, logged into our accounts, and started digging. What I found made me physically sick. There were transfers, thousands of dollars, from our joint savings for debt account to his personal checking, slowly every few months. Small enough not to seem alarming on their own. $800 here, when $200 there, all totaling almost $24,000. And 3 months ago, right before our anniversary, he'd posted a picture on Instagram of his dream car, a sleek, black, brand new Mustang GT. The caption, "Finally made it happen." He told me he got an amazing deal, that it was financed mostly through his bonus. I'd even congratulated him. I didn't realize I'd basically paid for it. When I confronted him the next morning, he looked almost defensive. "I didn't steal it, Em. It's our money. You're acting like I took something from you. We're married. It's the same pot." "But it wasn't for that," I screamed. "It was for my loans, my future. You promised you were paying them." He just shook his head and muttered, "It's just money, Emily. You're being dramatic." That was the moment something in me broke, because it wasn't just money, it was trust. It was years of exhaustion, of grinding and believing we were building something together. I've spent the last 2 weeks in a fog, going through statements, making calls, and trying to piece together how deep this goes. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and honestly, stupid. I don't even know if I'm angrier at him or at myself for never double-checking. He's been acting like it's no big deal, like I should move on and stop obsessing. He even said, "At least the car's in great shape." I don't recognize this man anymore. Right now, I'm staying at my sister's place while I figure out my next steps. He's been texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and guilt trips. Part of me still loves him, but another part, a growing colder part, can't look at him without feeling disgust. How do I come back from this? Is there even a way to fix something like this? Or is this the line that can't be uncrossed? I just need advice. Or maybe I just need someone to tell me I'm not crazy for feeling like this is more than a financial mistake. Because right now, it feels like my entire marriage was built on lies. I didn't realize how much I'd been holding in until I got to my sister's house. The moment she opened the door and hugged me, I just started crying, like ugly crying. The kind where you can't even breathe properly. And it all comes pouring out at once. Fear, anger, betrayal, confusion. My sister Leah is 3 years younger than me. She's always been the more practical one. Not emotional, not dramatic. So when I told her everything, from the debt collector's call to the Mustang, she didn't interrupt. She just sat there with her jaw clenched, listening. When I finished, she said quietly, "That's not forgetting. That's lying." I wanted to argue, to soften it somehow, to find a way to make it sound less awful than it was, but I couldn't, because she was right. That night, Leah let me crash in her guest room. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying everything. All the times Mark had reassured me, "We're on track. Don't stress about the loans." The times I'd felt guilty for not checking, but then thought, he's my husband, why would I need to? I went through our shared Google Drive the next morning. He'd set up a budget 2022 folder we used to track bills. I hadn't looked at it in months. There it was, clean and detailed, until last year. No updates, no notes, nothing. Then I checked my email archives. Dozens of loan payment overdue and urgent account notice emails, all marked as read. Not by me. He'd been deleting them, probably from our shared inbox. That was the first moment I felt something shift from heartbreak to actual fury. Leah told me to call a lawyer, or at least a financial advisor, before talking to Mark again. I didn't want to believe it had come to that, but she was calm and logical about it. You need to protect yourself. This isn't just a fight, this is debt. This affects your credit, your future, everything. So I did. I called a financial consultant she knew from work. I explained the situation and she said very carefully, "You might want to check your credit report for other accounts. Sometimes, when one partner controls the finances, there can be more surprises. That word, surprises, made my stomach twist. I pulled my credit report that night. There it was. A joint personal loan for $15,000 opened 8 months ago. My name on it, my signature, forged. He'd taken it out for home repairs according to the documents, but we hadn't done any repairs. Our house was fine. I remember just staring at the screen, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. That's when Leah came in with tea, took one look at my face and whispered, "What did he do now?" When I told her, she said, "You can't go back there. Not until you talk to a lawyer. This isn't just betrayal. This is fraud." I nodded, numb. Meanwhile, Mark kept texting. At first it was apologies, then it turned into guilt trips. "I made a mistake, okay? You're punishing me too much for something that wasn't malicious. Can't we just move forward? It's not like I cheated. You're letting your sister poison you against me." That one hurt the most, because Leah wasn't poisoning anything. She was saving me from drowning in the denial I'd built. By the weekend, he showed up at her house unannounced. I heard the knock and froze. Leah answered the door. "Hey, Mark," she said flatly. "She doesn't want to see you." He tried to step inside, holding flowers and this pathetic half smile. "I just need 5 minutes, please." Leah didn't budge. "Then you can call her lawyer. Goodbye." He glared at her, his voice low but sharp. "You think you're helping her, but you're ruining our marriage." I stepped into the hallway then, shaking but determined. "No, Mark, you did that." He turned to me, all wounded and frustrated. "Emily, you're overreacting. I told you I'd fix it. I'm already setting up a payment plan. The car can wait. Please just come home." I wanted so badly to believe him. I wanted to go back to the version of him who kissed my forehead in the morning, who cooked me pancakes on Sundays, but I couldn't find that man anymore. All I saw was someone who'd looked me in the eyes and lied for years. I said quietly, "You forged my name on a loan." "Mark, you don't get to call that a mistake." He froze, color draining from his face. "What? No, I didn't." I saw it. I checked my credit report. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the floor, and muttered, "It was just to help us catch up." "I was gonna tell you." My voice cracked. "When? After I went bankrupt?" He didn't answer. Leah stepped forward and said, "You need to leave now." And for the first time in our entire marriage, Mark didn't argue. He just left. The door clicked shut, and I felt hollow. Not free, not strong, just empty. I spent the next few days calling the loan company, documenting everything, and starting to realize that the man I loved wasn't careless. He was calculated. He'd been managing me like a balance sheet. I thought the worst was over, but it wasn't, because soon I'd learn why he did it, and who else knew. I didn't think it could get worse, but it did. After Mark left Leah's house that day, there was a strange calm that settled over me. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't even angry in that wild, explosive way. It was something quieter, cold, like my brain had switched into survival mode. Leah kept saying, "You're doing the right thing," but it didn't feel like it. It felt like my world was being stripped apart piece by piece. A few days later, I met with a lawyer. She was kind but firm, middle-aged, practical, and not easily shocked. I handed her the printouts, bank statements, forged loan documents, screenshots of transfers. She read in silence for a few minutes, then looked up and said, "This isn't negligence. This is financial abuse." That word, abuse, hit me like a punch to the chest. She explained how financial control is often used to trap someone, how making a partner dependent, hiding debts, or using their credit without consent all fit under that term. I wanted to say, "No, Mark's not like that," but every piece of paper in that folder said otherwise. Then she asked a question I wasn't expecting. "Has he ever done something like this before? Lied about money, hidden accounts, made big purchases without telling you?" I hesitated. Then a memory flashed. A few years back, he'd found a great deal on a gaming PC and put it on a store credit card, in my name. He'd told me it was just temporary because his limit was full. I remember being irritated, but he paid it off quickly, so I let it go. Now I realized it wasn't temporary. It was practice. The lawyer suggested filing a report and freezing my credit immediately. She also told me something that still haunts me. Men who do this rarely stop after one time. There's usually a pattern. That night, I went through everything. Our shared accounts, old texts, photos, even his email, which I still had access to from an old tablet he used. And that's when I found her. A woman named Jenna, someone I vaguely remembered from his office. I'd met her once at a holiday party. She was bubbly, sweet, and way too touchy with him for my liking, but he'd laughed it off. "She's just friendly, babe. Don't be weird." They'd been emailing. Not romantic exactly, but personal. She was the one who helped him get a deal on the Mustang. Apparently, her brother worked at the dealership. In one email, he wrote, "Can't wait to show you the car in person. You're the only one who really gets why I wanted this so bad." That line made my skin crawl. Then another message from her a few months later. "So, how's the loan situation? You still juggling that thing with M's account?" And his reply, "Yeah, but she doesn't check. It's fine. Once the bonus hits, I'll square it up." He'd said it like I was just some clueless roommate, not his wife. I sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. I wasn't even sure what hurt more, the money or the mockery. I forwarded everything to myself, then to the lawyer. She called me the next morning and said, "This changes things. He involves someone else. That strengthens your case, my case, against my husband." I can't describe how surreal that felt. I called him that night. I didn't want to text. I needed to hear his voice, to give him one last chance to tell me the truth. When he picked up, his tone was tired, irritated. "What now, Em? Who's Jenna?" Silence, then a sigh. "She's a friend from work. Don't start this." "I saw your emails, Mark." Another pause, then quietly, "You went through my emails? I found out you forged my signature, drained my savings, and used my credit. You lost your right to privacy." He didn't deny it. He just said, "You're twisting everything." Jenna just helped me get a discount. It wasn't some big conspiracy. She asked about my account, Mark. She knew. He groaned. "You're reading too much into it. You always do this, and and turn small things into big ones. That's when I realized he wasn't just lying. He was gaslighting me. I said, "You've been lying for years. You made me believe we were paying off my loans when you were using my money for your toys." He snapped back, "I'm sorry, I wanted something for myself for once. You act like I've been living some luxury life. I've been paying for everything else too." "No," I said quietly. "You've been paying for everything with my money." He didn't respond, just heavy breathing on the line. "Then, you're ruining this marriage, Emily, over a misunderstanding." And before I could even speak, he hung up. I just sat there in silence, phone still in my hand, staring at the wall. I think that was the moment I finally understood. There wasn't anything left to fix. He didn't forget. He didn't mess up. He chose this. The betrayal wasn't accidental. It was built. Now I'm gathering paperwork for the lawyer, starting the process of separating accounts and trying to breathe. But it still hurts. God, it hurts. Not just losing him, but losing the person I thought I could trust more than anyone in the world. If I thought facing Mark was the hardest part, I was wrong. The hardest part came after, when everyone else got involved. I hadn't told my parents yet. I didn't even know how to explain it. My mom always liked Mark. She thought he was such a provider. You know, the kind of man who seemed responsible, polite, and steady. So when she called asking why I hadn't been home for a week, I finally told her the truth, or most of it. That Mark had mismanaged money, that I found out he'd been lying about my loans. I didn't mention the forgery. Not yet. There was a long pause. Then she sighed and said, "Honey, men make mistakes. You can't throw away a marriage over finances." I just sat there in disbelief. If my mom had any idea how deep this went, how many lies, how much deception, she wouldn't say that. But she's from a generation that believes you stay, no matter what. You work through it. I said quietly, "Mom, he stole from me." And she replied, "He's your husband. What's his is yours, and what's yours is his." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Leah found me later that night, sitting in the dark on her porch. "She's siding with him, isn't she?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I think she just doesn't want to believe he's that kind of person." Leah snorted. "He's exactly that kind of person. He's just good at hiding it." The next morning, I got a text from Mark's mom. "Emily, I know things are hard, but Mark told me you've been spreading lies. He's devastated. Please come home and talk this out." Spreading lies. He was spinning this to his family. Apparently, he'd told them I was emotionally unstable and fixated on imaginary debts. He even said I'd hacked into his private accounts. When I read that, I laughed out loud, the kind of bitter, exhausted laugh that doesn't sound like joy at all. Leah shook her head. "He's trying to rewrite the story before you can." And he was. The next week was a blur of paperwork, stress, and constant second-guessing. The lawyer was helping me freeze joint accounts, transfer titles, and block him from further access. She warned me, "He's going to push back. People like him don't handle losing control well." She was right. He started showing up at my job, not yelling or causing scenes, just waiting in the parking lot, once in the lobby, always with that same calm, sad look like I'm the one who broke his heart. He even brought flowers one afternoon and left them on my car windshield. A note attached, "Please don't do this. We can fix it. You're my whole world." It made my stomach turn because I realized he wasn't trying to fix us. He was trying to fix the image of us, the one he could control. I told my boss what was going on. She was understanding, thankfully. She even offered to walk me to my car when I left late. But the hardest part came when I went back to the house for the first time. I needed to grab documents and some of my stuff. Leah came with me. I thought Mark might not be home, but of course he was. He opened the door before we even knocked. "Emily," he said softly, "please, just hear me out." His eyes were red. He looked exhausted, unshaven. If I hadn't known better, I might have felt sorry for him. Leah stepped forward. "She's just here to get her things. That's it." He looked past her at me. "You really think I'd hurt you like this on purpose?" I wanted to scream. "You forged my name. You lied for years. You drained me." But instead, I just said, "I think you did it because you could." That seemed to hit him. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He just stood there, jaw tightening. When I walked past him, I could feel his eyes on me. Not loving, not sorry, just watching. In the bedroom, I started packing quietly. My favorite hoodie, some books, old photos I wasn't sure I even wanted anymore. Leah whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. Then I opened the drawer of his nightstand and froze. Inside was a folder, a manila one, labeled Finances. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Inside were printed copies of our tax returns, loan statements, and at the back, a list written in his handwriting. Debt consolidation, transfer M's account, car payoff, keep separate checking, talk to Jenna refi. I stared at that last line until my eyes blurred. Talk to Jenna refi. He was planning something new, maybe another loan, maybe something worse. I stuffed the folder in my bag. When we left, he followed us to the door. "You don't have to do this," he said again. I turned back, voice shaking but steady. "You already did." And then I closed the door. That night, the lawyer confirmed what I suspected. He'd been trying to use my information again. There was a pending application for another small loan, this time under both our names. She froze it in time. She told me, "Emily, this isn't just about divorce anymore. You need to protect yourself legally, permanently." I think that was the first night I slept soundly in months. Not because I felt safe, but because I finally realized I wasn't crazy, I wasn't dramatic, and I wasn't alone. For the first time, I believed I'd survive this. Filing for divorce was both the easiest and hardest thing I've ever done. fun. Easy, because deep down I knew there was no other option. Hard, because it made everything real. When I signed those papers, my hands were shaking. The lawyer slid them across her desk gently and said, "This is your first real step toward freedom." Freedom. The word felt heavy, like something I didn't quite deserve yet. Mark found out a week later. I didn't tell him myself. He was served. Leah said it was better that way. You've tried being kind, and he used it against you every time. The reaction came fast. He called 17 times in one night. Left 4 voicemails, one crying, one apologizing, one angry, one quiet and menacing. "You're making a huge mistake. We can fix this if you just stop listening to your sister. You think anyone else will put up with you? If you want a war, you'll get one." That last one scared me. My lawyer told me to block him, and I did. Then she helped me get a restraining order when he showed up outside my workplace again. He didn't say anything this time, just sat in his car, the same damn Mustang I'd unknowingly paid for, watching me through the glass. It took everything in me not to break down, because even after everything, part of me still missed him. Not the man he'd become, but the version I thought I married. But I started therapy around that time. My therapist, a calm woman named Karen who somehow made silence feel safe, helped me understand something I'd never seen clearly before. She said, "Emily, you were groomed into trusting him. He didn't just take your money. He took your sense of control." She was right. Mark hadn't just managed our finances, he'd managed me. Every decision we made as a couple went through him. Every time I questioned something, he'd say, "Don't worry about it, I've got it handled." And I'd think that meant I was lucky, that it meant I could relax. But what it really meant was that I'd been slowly erased from my own life. The first time I logged into my own bank account and saw it under my name only, I cried. Not because of the balance, it wasn't much, but because it was mine. I started doing little things just for me. Cooking what I liked, listening to music without worrying if he'd mock it, sleeping without that constant anxiety in my chest. It was like my brain was finally unclenching after years of being on alert. But Mark didn't stop. When the divorce filing went through, he tried to freeze the process by claiming I was mentally unfit to handle finances. He submitted old text messages, completely out of context, to make it look like I'd been unstable. He even contacted my mom again, telling her I'd lost it. And my mom, bless her heart, called crying. "Emily, why are you doing this? He's saying you're destroying both your lives." I had to tell her the whole truth then. Every disgusting, humiliating detail about the forgery, the fake accounts, the money, the car. There was a long silence. Then she whispered, He forged your name?" "Yes, Mom." Another pause. Then, "I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know." For the first time, she was on my side. A few days later, my dad called too. He's not a man of many words, but he said, "If you need anything, a place to stay, a truck to move stuff, I've got you." That meant more than I can explain. Then came the court hearing for the restraining order. I sat there in a gray room with fluorescent lights, heart pounding, and saw Mark walk in. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, older, but his eyes were still sharp. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood up and said, "I trusted this man with everything I had. My money, my future, my name. And he used it against me. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for peace." Mark stared straight ahead, didn't blink, didn't look at me once. The order was granted, 6 months minimum. When we left the courthouse, Leah squeezed my hand and said, "You did it." I didn't feel victorious, just tired. But under the exhaustion, there was something else. Relief. I was free. Not completely, not yet. But I could see the edges of freedom forming. I moved into a small apartment near Leah's place. It's nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, mismatched furniture, and a leaky faucet. But it's mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor with takeout and my laptop. I logged into my student loan portal for the first time in years and started making payments again. On my own terms, it felt symbolic, like reclaiming my past from the wreckage he left. But just when I thought things were finally calming down, I got a message from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but you don't know the half of it. No name, no signature." And I recognized the area code, Mark's hometown. I stared at it for a long time before locking my phone and whispering to myself, "I'm not afraid of you anymore." I wanted to believe it. I needed to believe it because something told me this wasn't over yet. That text, "You think you've won, but you don't know the half of it," haunted me for days. I told myself it was just another scare tactic. Mark had done this before. When he couldn't control me with love, he tried fear. But something about that message felt different. It wasn't his tone. It wasn't emotional or desperate. It was cold. And the area code, that's what got me. It was from his hometown, a small place 2 hours away. The same town where his old business partner lived, a man named Ryan. Ryan had always been a shadow in our marriage. I'd met him once, briefly. He was loud, confident, the kind of guy who wore sunglasses indoors and called women sweetheart. Mark once said, "He's helping me with investments, don't worry about it." And I hadn't, because back then, I didn't worry about anything Mark said. But after that text, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. So one night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I messaged him on Facebook. "Hi Ryan, I think you know who I am. Can we talk?" He replied within minutes. "Took you long enough." That reply made my blood run cold. I asked him what he meant, but he didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "You should check the other accounts your husband set up. The ones under your maiden name." I froze. My maiden name? That didn't make sense. I hadn't used that in years. Ryan sent a screenshot, a banking summary with my old name at the top. Account balance, $48,126. My first thought was, that's not my account. My second thought was, where the hell did that money come from? Ryan said he'd been trying to get Mark to pay him back for months. Apparently, Mark had used my forged signature to open multiple investment accounts, funneling money in and out through fake business names. And Ryan had proof. He sent me email threads, bank documents, even photos of checks, all written under my my name. That's when it hit me. Mark hadn't just stolen my savings. He'd used my identity to launder money. The reason my savings disappeared wasn't just the car. It was to cover up what he'd done before. I felt sick. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. I called Leah immediately. She drove over in 10 minutes flat, still in her pajamas. When I showed her the screenshots, she just whispered, "Oh my God." We went straight to my lawyer the next morning. She looked at the documents, took a deep breath, and said, "Emily, this isn't just divorce anymore. This is criminal." That word, criminal, echoed in my head. Within a week, a financial crimes investigator contacted me. They'd already been monitoring suspicious transfers linked to Mark's name. My name, technically. Turns out, Ryan had flipped and turned over all evidence to reduce his own charges. That's when I realized the text message wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Someone had tipped me off before things exploded. And explode they did. Mark was arrested 3 weeks later. Embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, the whole 9 yards. When the officers came to get him, he reportedly said, "Emily's framing me. She always wanted to ruin me." Classic Mark, the victim in his own story. When I got the call confirming his arrest, I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just sat in silence for a long time. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up worrying about money. All the times I'd apologized for asking questions. All the times he'd said, "You're lucky I take care of everything." No, he didn't take care of me. He took everything from me. And for the first time, I finally understood. The version of him I fell in love with never really existed. He was a mask, a performance, and I'd been the audience, paying the ticket price with my own life. The trial's still ongoing, and I don't know what the outcome will be yet. But what I do know is this. I'm not scared anymore. I've rebuilt from zero before. I'll do it again, this time without him weighing me down. The other night, I sat in my little apartment drinking tea, scrolling through photos of the life I used to have. The trips, the dinners, the fake smiles. Then I closed the album and whispered to myself, I may have lost everything, but I finally have myself back. And that's worth more than any savings account ever could be. The first court hearing was colder than I imagined. Not just the temperature, but the atmosphere. Everything felt sterile. The polished floors, the sound of pens scribbling, the hum of fluorescent lights. When they brought Mark in, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight. His hair, once perfectly styled, hung limp and greasy. His eyes darted around the courtroom like a trapped animal. For a second, just one small, cruel second, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the debt collectors, the panic attacks, the nights I skipped meals so we could save. That pity evaporated. He didn't look at me once. But when the prosecutor began reading the list of charges, identity theft, embezzlement, wire fraud, forgery, his hands started to shake. It was surreal hearing my own name tied to fake accounts and joint ventures I never signed up for. My lawyer squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "You're doing great." I wasn't sure what great even meant anymore. The trial dragged on for weeks. I had to testify 3 separate times, each more painful than the last. The defense tried to twist everything, suggested that maybe I had known about the accounts, or that Mark and I had a mutual understanding. Hearing that made my stomach turn, as if love meant consent to being used. Every night after court, I went home, lit one candle on my coffee table, and sat in silence. It became a ritual, one small flame in the middle of all that darkness. And then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. As I was leaving the courthouse, a woman approached me. She looked nervous, clutching a small folder. "Are you Emily?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't know me, but I used to work with Mark." I felt my stomach drop. She introduced herself as Sophie. She'd been Mark's assistant at the firm, one of the people he constantly mentioned as useless. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'm the one who tipped you off." My knees nearly gave out. "You mean the text?" I asked. She nodded. "I saw what he was doing months ago. I tried to stop him, but he threatened me, said he'd ruin my career. So when I heard he was moving money again, I used a burner number and warned you." I couldn't believe it. All this time, I thought it was Ryan trying to scare me, but it was a stranger, a woman, trying to save me. Sophie told me she'd left the company after the scandal broke and that she'd been questioned too. She'd cooperated fully, even helped trace where some of the missing funds went. Before she left, she handed me the folder. "I thought you should see this," she said. Inside were copies of Mark's personal notes, handwritten, dated. Every entry detailed his plans, how he'd hide money, how he'd convince me the loans were paid, even how he'd frame Ryan if things went bad. Reading it felt like walking into a nightmare version of my own marriage. Every line was manipulation, rehearsed and calculated. That night, I cried for hours, not because I missed him, but because I couldn't believe I'd shared a life with someone so coldly strategic. When the final verdict came in, I didn't attend in person. My lawyer called me with the outcome. Guilty on all major counts. 6 years in federal prison. I expected to feel relief. Instead, I felt hollow. Justice doesn't feel like victory when the person who hurt you is someone you once loved. It just feels like loss of time, trust, and the version of yourself that believed love was enough. A week after the sentencing, Sophie texted me again. "I hope you can finally breathe now." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could. I went for a walk that evening, alone. The air was crisp, the sky streaked with the orange of a fading sunset. I watched couples pass by, kids laughing, dogs tugging leashes, normal life happening all around me. And I realized something. I wasn't broken. I was just healing in real time. That night, I wrote in my journal, the same one I'd started the week Mark was was arrested. Freedom isn't loud. It's quiet. It's waking up without fear of what someone else has done while you were asleep. And that quiet? It's everything. The morning after the verdict, I woke up to silence. Not the tense, heavy kind that used to hang over our house, that walking on eggshells silence. This one felt clean. No half-open bedroom door. No sound of the espresso machine Mark always used at 6 a.m. No guilt-filled texts about budgeting or accounting errors. Just me. And quiet. I made coffee the way I liked it. Too sweet with extra cinnamon. I sat on the small balcony of my new apartment, wrapped in an old blanket, and watched the city come alive below. For the first time in years, I didn't check my phone in panic. No missed calls from collectors. No fake payment confirmations. No gaslighting messages that made me question my memory. Just peace. But peace, I've learned, is weird after trauma. You don't know what to do with it. The first month after his sentencing, I was lost. I'd spent so long being someone's wife, someone's problem solver, someone's victim, that I didn't know how to just be Emily. I started therapy, something I'd avoided before because we couldn't afford it, which, now I know, meant he didn't want me to have it. My therapist, an older woman named June, told me something that stuck with me. You were trained to survive in chaos. Now you have to learn to live in calm. That hit me hard. I realized I'd been addicted to fixing things, to chasing closure that never existed. And now that I actually had it, I didn't know how to slow down. So I started small. I cleaned. I cooked meals that took hours just because I could. I sold the last of my wedding jewelry and used the money to take an online design course, something I'd always wanted to do. And somewhere between color theory assignments and late-night journaling, I started remembering who I used to be. One night, Leah came over with takeout. We sat on the floor laughing about our college days, the bad haircuts, the cheap vodka, the endless optimism. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You're finally back." That almost made me cry, because she was right. I was smiling again without forcing it. I started freelancing as a graphic designer, taking small gigs here and there. The first time I got paid, real money, earned by me, I stared at the notification for 10 minutes. It wasn't much, but it felt like proof that I was rebuilding. Then, something unexpected happened. One of my clients was a small local bookstore. The owner, Tom, was this quiet, kind man with silver hair and soft eyes. He was always patient when I was nervous about invoices or timelines. After a few months, he invited me to the store's poetry night. I almost said no. Dating or even being social felt impossible, but I went. The place smelled like paper and cinnamon candles. People sat in mismatched chairs, reading poems about heartbreak, recovery, and hope. When it was Tom's turn, he read something that made me freeze. We are not the scars we carry, but the skin that grew over them, proof that we can heal, even when we thought we wouldn't. I don't know if he wrote it for me, but it felt like he did. After the event, he found me near the back, sipping wine. He smiled, that calm, steady kind of smile I'd forgotten people could have. "I'm glad you came," he said. "You look lighter." And I realized I was not fixed, not perfectly okay, but lighter. We started talking about books, design, small things. He never pushed, never pried, just listened. It was the first time I'd been around someone who didn't make me feel like I owed them something. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain my past. That night, I went home and sat at my desk. I opened my journal and wrote, "Healing doesn't look like moving on. It looks like finally being able to breathe where you are." It's been 6 months since then. I still go to therapy. I still budget carefully. I still have moments where the fear creeps back, like when an unknown number calls or a bill looks unfamiliar. But I handle it, because I trust me now. And maybe that's the greatest revenge of all. Not anger, not closure, but becoming someone who doesn't need to be saved anymore. It was a rainy Thursday when the letter arrived. I almost didn't check the mail that day. I'd been working on a design deadline, headphones in, coffee gone cold beside me. But something told me to. Maybe intuition, maybe curiosity. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A plain envelope, my name handwritten in small, shaky letters. No return address, but the moment I saw the handwriting, my stomach dropped. I knew that it was his. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to rip it open immediately. Another part wanted to throw it in the trash unopened, along with everything else he'd ever given me. But I didn't. Instead, I set it on my table next to my coffee and just looked at it. That envelope sat there for 2 hours while I paced the apartment, debating what to do. Finally, I exhaled and opened it. There were only 2 pages. The first started with, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know my side." I almost laughed. His side. There was always a side when it came to Mark. He wrote about how things got out of hand, how he'd been under pressure, how he thought he could fix it before it hurt anyone. He mentioned Ryan, the firm, the money, all of it wrapped in this narrative where he wasn't a monster, just a man who made bad choices. But then came the part that made me stop breathing. The car wasn't really about me. It was supposed to be a gift for us, a way to start over. I know that sounds stupid now, but I really thought we could still make it work. You were everything to me, and I ruined it. For the first time, the letter didn't sound manipulative. It sounded broken. He said he was in therapy, prison mandated, of course, and that his counselor told him to write to those he hurt most. He wrote that he'd finally admitted to himself that he didn't love me the way I deserved, that he didn't even know what love was back then. At the bottom, there was a line that made me cry. Not out of love, but out of something more complicated. You were my home. I just never learned how to live in one. I folded the letter and sat there for a long time. The rain outside had turned into a soft drizzle, tapping gently against the window. For years, I'd fantasized about what I'd say if I ever saw him again. I'd imagined screaming, demanding answers, making him feel what I felt. But reading that letter, I didn't feel rage anymore, just an odd, quiet sadness for the person he could have been, and for the version of me who believed believed he was that person. I didn't write back. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't need to anymore. A few weeks later, I took that letter to therapy. June read parts of it and said, "Sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's a choice not to reopen the wound." So I folded it one last time, walked to the park, and dropped it into a public trash bin. I didn't rip it, didn't burn it. I just let it go. That night, I slept through the night for the first time in months. When I woke up, I brewed my coffee and looked out the window. The city was quiet, washed clean by the rain. Realized something then, something simple but freeing. I don't need him to understand what he did. I just need to keep living in a world where he can't hurt me anymore. Later that week, I went back to the bookstore. Tom was there, restocking shelves. When he saw me, he smiled softly and asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." He didn't ask for details. He just handed me a new poetry book and said, "This one's about second chances." When I opened it later, there was a quote on the first page. "Some people spend their whole lives chasing closure, but healing comes when you finally stop chasing." I closed the book, took a deep breath, and smiled. Maybe this was what freedom really looked like. Not erasing the past, but learning to live gently with its shadow. It's been a full year since the day Mark was sentenced. A full year since I opened that letter and chose not to reply. A full year since I started learning how to live again, not as his wife, but just me. Sometimes I look around my apartment and can't believe how far I've come. The walls are lined with little things that mean everything. Framed art prints I designed, secondhand books, a plant I haven't killed yet. It's not much, but it's mine. The same girl who once couldn't even check her bank balance without panic now tracks every expense with calm, quiet confidence. There's still a small student loan balance, but it's under my name now, and every payment feels like taking another brick off my back. I've even started teaching part-time, an online class on digital design for women who want to restart their careers after setbacks. The first time I introduced myself to my students, I said, "Hi, I'm Emily. I lost everything once," and it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. They laughed, not realizing I meant it literally. Tom still runs the bookstore. I still visit every Friday evening for poetry nights. We've grown close, slowly, carefully, like two people who understand that love doesn't have to be a rescue mission. He never asked for details about Mark. He just gives me space when I need it, and warmth when I reach for it. Last week, he surprised me by framing one of my posters, a minimalist design that says, "Rebuild gently." It hangs behind the bookstore counter now. Sometimes I catch customers reading it and smiling. It makes me think, maybe I wasn't rebuilding just for myself. Maybe someone else needed to see that it's possible, because that's what healing has taught me. You don't wake up one day suddenly over it. You heal in moments, in quiet, messy, human ways. You heal when you choose peace over reaction, when you finally stop explaining your pain to people who broke you, when you start liking the sound of your own laugh again. I still have triggers. If I hear a certain kind of ringtone, the one the debt collectors used to call me on, my chest tightens. If someone says, "Trust me too easily," my brain flashes red. But now, instead of running from it, I pause. I breathe. I remind myself, that was then, this is now. The hardest part isn't forgiving Mark. It's forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner, for ignoring the red flags, for believing that love required sacrifice. But I've learned that self-forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. And the woman I'm becoming, she's stronger, softer, wiser. She pays her bills, keeps her boundaries, and knows her worth. Not because someone told her, but because she rebuilt it from the ashes. The other night, I stood on my balcony again. Same blanket, same city skyline, different heart. The sky was streaked pink and gold, and for a second, I thought about my old life, the version of me that thought security meant depending on someone else. I whispered into the air, "Thank you for leaving, because losing you gave me back myself." It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was peace. Pure, steady peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Final reflection. If anyone reading this is in a situation where your partner controls everything, your money, your choices, your voice, please listen to me. That's not love. That's control wearing a mask. You are not crazy for questioning things. You are not dramatic for wanting transparency. And you are not stuck. You can start again. You can rebuild slowly, painfully, beautifully. And one day you'll wake up in a quiet morning, drinking your coffee with too much cinnamon, and realize you made it out. Not because someone saved you, but because you finally saved yourself. The end.